Guess who got brands talking? brandlive.co.za.
You're listening to Inside OUTA with Lois Mudley.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Inside OUTA. I'm Lois Mudley, Head of Communications at OUTA, the organization undoing tax abuse. Last week we began a series of interviews focusing on whistleblowing by inviting OUTA's Head of Investigations, Eric Neetling, onto the show. Today I'll be chatting to Gabriella Razzano, the Executive Director of the Open Democracy Advice Center, who, as well as promoting access to information and transparency, are an organization that works hard to protect whistleblowers. It's quite fitting that we are looking at whistleblowing over the next few weeks as the state capture inquiry is ongoing, and we will all know how important the OUTA leaks was in uncovering the extent of the political interference and manipulation. As you know, OUTA is one of the few organizations that have the OUTA leaks in hand, and we will be presenting quite an extensive document to the Commission later on this month. So we'll be chatting to Ben Theron, our COO, about that. But first, we'll be chatting also to Gabriella about the work that they are doing, so stay tuned.
Corruption, more accountability. Stay tuned to Inside OUTA.
Well, joining us today from the line, on the line from Cape Town is Gabriella Razzano, the Executive Director of Open Democracy's Advice Center. Sorry about that. Gabriella, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Inside OUTA.
No problem. Thanks so much for having us.
Well, to start off, please tell us exactly what ODAC does.
Okay, so ODAC is a niche legal non-profit organization. We specialize in the advancement of access to information, promotion of Access to Information Act, advancing transparency, promoting open data, working with open data, all those kinds of things. And we also provide protection, the advancement of protection of whistleblowers. So we do that by providing hotline, we advocate for the rights of whistleblowers, etc.
Well, tell us more about how you assist whistleblowers and what their rights are according to the Protected Disclosures Act.
Sure thing. So ODAC provides a direct hotline. The hotline advises whistleblowers on the Protected Disclosures Act. And through that hotline, we advise between 150 to 200 whistleblowers every year.
Wow.
We also sometimes provide litigation support. So we don't have any in-house attorneys anymore, but what we do, well, for all lawyers, for us, but we provide litigation support in cases which, strategically advance the law. In 2015, for instance, we helped the whistleblower for Mr. Matengu uncover corruption in public work.
No, please continue.
Okay. Then we also we advocate to advance the law. So the Protect has been around since 2000, I think. But we've been trying to advance that law for over 15 years. I mean, there have recently been amendments to the law based on exactly that work by ODAC, which extended the protections that the law provides by including temporary workers within its provisions, excluding civil and criminal liability for whistleblowers, which is very important, expanding kinds of bodies you can report to, but also very, very importantly, creating positive obligations on organizations to implement whistleblowing policies and follow up with whistleblowers. So those positive obligations are very powerful.
So you talked about extending the law. Do you think the legislation is sufficient enough there's enough to protect whistleblowers?
No, I don't. So the protected disclosure, it's considered almost a piece of showpiece legislation. We were one of the first countries to have proper whistleblower protections alongside, for instance, the United Kingdom and that. But they're labor protections, So if you disclose something in the workplace, you can't receive occupational detriment. So you can't be harassed at work or subject to disciplinaries or any of that kind of thing. I think, in 2018, we understand that a whistleblower is a lot more than just someone who, discloses within the workplace. Our understanding of what a whistleblower is much broader, and the protections are quite limited. And there are even shortcomings within the Protected Disclosures Act. So recently, when the law was amended, in spite of serious pushback from us, they included a criminal offense for false reporting or false disclosure of the law, which, to be perfectly honest, is bizarre. To include criminal offenses within a piece of labor legislation is just completely, I can't see what the point is. It's obviously there to create a chilling effect, or at least I think it is. And, there's no best practice that indicates that should be done. And if someone makes a false disclosure, they're not protected by that law anyway. Yeah. So I think the inclusion of things like that make you very suspicious about the environment for whistleblowers and why they're so fearful. Sure. And I think, there are other laws that are relevant. So you've got the Companies Act that provides some protection. National Environmental Management Act provides protection for people who disclose in environmental matters. You might be able to use the Protection of Harassment Act. There's technically the Witness Protection Act. But there's also the SAPS Act, as we see now with the Public Protector report that she released, I think, this week or last week. SAPS for failing to protect the whistleblowers in that political assassination case. And I think what she shows is that even when there are laws and even when there are institutions specifically set up to protect whistleblowers, not enough is done. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to be done. Sorry?
No, continue. Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be done, particularly when you consider that there are real threats to the lives of whistleblowers. Those have been murdered.
Yeah, with all of this, and obviously, there are lots of cases that we've heard of whistleblowers going missing, of people, just who are being murdered, and it is very, quite an unsafe environment, and there's so much risk for a whistleblower. But do you have examples of whistleblowers who have made a real significant difference? And the information.
I think that's part of the magic of what whistleblowers do. That in spite of being such a hostile environment, people come out and do the right thing. Last week, I spoke on a panel with Suzanne Daniels, who was the ESCOM whistleblower, and Bianca Goodson, who is the Trillion whistleblower. And these are remarkable women without whose impact we wouldn't know what we know about state capture, and the country wouldn't be where it is about, challenging state capture if people like that hadn't come forward. And there's a reason why the Daily Maverick named whistleblowers like that their persons of the year. And they're almost, outside of those high-profile cases, like another high-profile obvious case is someone like Edward Snowden. Stuff that Edward Snowden said internationally has completely reframed and our own privacy and personal security. That's amazing. But there are more discreet ways that whistleblowers, help the environment, and particularly within the workplace. PricewaterhouseCoopers, for instance, and other researchers have revealed that businesses themselves identify whistleblowers, in-house whistleblowers, as one of the most efficient means for combating, economic crime in organizations. And 77% of South African organizations, businesses, say they're affected by economic crime. So that's very important.
Well, we're going to be back shortly. We're talking to Gabriella Razzano, the Executive Director of the Open Democracy Advice Center.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. brandlive.co.za.
Demand good governance. Join us weekly on Inside Outer.
Well, let's turn to other aspects of ODAC's work. Why is access to information so important?
Well, ODAC believes access to information is so important because the role it has in balancing out power between people. I think you need information to be an active citizen. You need information to be able to engage. At its most basic, information is exceptionally empowering and a fundamental part of, a modern, vibrant, successful democracy. So ODAC believes access to information is a vital aspect of South Africa's growth.
My producers put in here, is it straightforward for members of the public to make a promotion of Access to Information Act or PIA submissions? And I must be honest, I don't even know what those things were before I joined OUTA. So I'm going to guess that it's very difficult for the public to make submissions of this sort to... so how do we do that? I mean, how does the public have a voice in this very legalese world? Does ODAC help with that? How do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, the law has a lot to offer. Should be doing the exact opposite. But the Promotion of Access to Information Act is just one part of accessing information, but it's actually quite a simple law when it gets down to it. I think not enough is being done to raise awareness about how it works and how to do it, and that's what ODAC tries to do. We try to promote use of the Act and encourage citizens in using it rather than, using it on their behalf. Because I think in the end, it's a relatively simple procedure, although, government is traditionally not the most responsive when it comes to using that law.
Well, like OUTA, ODAC is quite active in lobbying in Parliament. Have you had any impact in this regard?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Your lobbying in Parliament, like OUTA, you have quite a big presence in Parliament to lobby. Have you had any impact with your lobbying in Parliament?
Yes, historically we've been very successful. Well, of course I think that, but we have been. The recent amendments to the Protected Disclosures Act that I mentioned is just an example of what we've been able to do to extend protections for whistleblowers, but we've had other successes. We were, part of the original campaign with the Right to Know campaign to push back against the secrecy bill. We're currently working on the cybersecurity bill, something that started out looking much scarier than it does now. And in fact, we're working on a subcommittee to improve what that law also looks like.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of work that continues. Laws pop up very quickly in this country and all over the place. And it's quite difficult to keep your eye on it, actually. But we think it's a very important part of our work.
That's wonderful. Can you just give us the hotline for whistleblowers to get in touch with you?
Sure. Whistleblowers can 525352, and that's a toll-free hotline. They can
Okay.
call whenever they need to.
Could you just repeat that, Gabriella?
With any more information, they can look at www. Oh, sure. They can call our toll-free hotline on 52352.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Gabriella, and thanks to ODAC for all the work that you are doing and assisting whistleblowers. I'm sure you can visit them on their website for more information about the work that they do. And if you're a whistleblower, I would encourage you to get in touch with them also. As you know, we spoke to Eric Netlang, our head of investigations last week, who gave us quite a bit of information about whistleblowers who have come through to OUTA. And we certainly encourage you to to come forward, give us the information, because without that, it's very difficult to do the work that we do. Thanks again, Gabriella. Up next is Theron to give us a lowdown of state capture.
Less tax abuse, more transparency. Stay tuned to Inside OUTA.
Live from 27 boxes in the heart of Melville, this is brandlive.co.za.
Please relax, let me have a moment of your time. Oh, I got something to tell. You see me, one day I almost lost my mind. I love to tell you everything. Oh, no, I lost my mind. I never took the time to see what I was feeling inside. For years you held my life. You had me locked up in your night. And then the morning break. That's when I knew that we were over. It never ever felt the same since that day. I know you're doing quite alright. And lately I'm doing just fine. I'm doing fine. All the sun still shines on you. To my soul, and you didn't even care to know how tarnished I felt. See, your problem is I understand me more than you know. All you wanted was a backseat. Can't push, pull me by the right beat, play cheap. Oh, out of my soul. Oh, when the morning breaks, that's when I knew that we were over. See, it ain't that kind of deal. That's why I'm still here. Now I know you're doing quite alright. And baby, I'm doing just fine. I'm doing fine. The sun still shines on you. There's nothing in the world I know I cannot do. I was nothing but a little girl. First encounter with the sour man, it ruled my world. Later on, it came to be. You inspire me every day. Even all of my pain, I watch you take away. You're so supreme. Without you in my world, I don't know where I would be. Look at me, strong grown woman living gracefully. So happy, you could tell that God has been good to me. I've come to be more than what they said that I would never be. They doubted me, didn't know how later I'm living my dream. You're doing quite alright. I'm living my dream. Hey, they can take that away and they can mess with me. Oh, ain't nothing in the world I cannot do.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. brandlive.co.za.
You're listening to Inside OUTA with Lois Moodley.
Well, welcome to Inside Out's Progress Report. In this feature, we are usually joined on the line with one of our portfolio managers who give us an update of the work that they are doing, whether it be transport, water and environment, energy, local government or special projects. And today we're tackling the State Capture Commission, and who better to give us a lowdown on what's been happening than OUTA's COO, Ben Theron. Thanks so much for joining us, Ben.
Only a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, the commission started earlier this week. What's been happening so far? Some people saying it's a slow start. What's your interpretation?
Not at all. It's important to set the scene. And what the commission has been doing is to ensure that people understand the rules, the process that we follow, and the timeline. So what they've made very clear, it's not a 100-meter race. It's a 2-year process that they have to undergo. And there will be enough time for everybody to submit, talk, give the evidence, and counter, and just all that stuff needs to be done. So that was done yesterday. This morning, what they did is they set the scene with regard to rules and regulations when it comes to the state and how do you do procurement, the acts that govern people, etc. Because that's important, because when you come to the actual state capture and the context, there are rules that you must abide by, so that when people talk about, but this person did X, you understand that X is actually wrong because the rule says A, B, and C.
Well, how is OUTA participating? Because I know we're very involved and we're one of the few organizations to have the Gupta leaks in hand. How are we participating in these proceedings?
Well, let's take a step back. Remember that OUTA, for the last 18 months, we changed our mandate from being fighting the e-tolls. We changed into looking at the bigger picture in South Africa where corruption has taken hold, and we've actually embraced that. So we have been busy with this. Last year, January, February, we started working very hard on that. In June, we actually submitted a report to Parliament about no room to hide, showing how the president is involved in state capture and corruption. And we, as we are today, we believe we are one of the triggers that caused the president to be removed from where he used to be. Now the long road goes to rebuilding South Africa, getting back the rule of law, etc. So it's important. Now, out of that is we are absolutely every day of our lives working against corruption, state capture, maladministration, because people pay taxes. We, South Africa as a rule, collect somewhere around between 1.5 and 1.6 trillion rand. That's 1,000 billion, 10 million. So it's a lot of zeros in there. And the problem that we have is that people abuse that money. So therefore, the poor suffer. The poor suffer. People that want grants, we are now battling with grants. Free education is difficult to achieve because there's enough money in South Africa, but the money will go sideways as opposed to where it's meant to be. What OUTA does is holding people to account. We are identifying and exposing corruption. And the process that we will be following, where we will be involved in the process going forward with the State Capture Commission, is to assist the Commission with evidence, because people come and talk to us. We've got whistleblowers speaking to us at various levels, both at government level, state-owned entity level, as well as private sector. And remember that money that gets stolen is money that you and I paid for taxes, and that money goes awry, and we can't afford that. So how we will be dealing with the Commission is we'll be submitting a document that's even probably triple the size of the No Room to Hide last year, identifying how people committed fraud and corruption in South Africa, and assisting the committee in making sure that the evidence is laid for them and people will be brought to book. So that's kind of along those lines. And we'll be attending it and giving feedback. We as OUTA believe that we are the voice of the people, because the people need to be represented in the State Capture Commission. And we are hoping that we are able to represent the normal citizens of Africa that is suffering at the moment. And we will be doing our utmost to make sure that this commission is successful.
Well, in-house, we've been calling it No Room to Hide on steroids. Can you tell us what are some of the highlights in our submission?
Absolutely. This is No Room to Hide on steroids. And basically what it means is when we submitted the document to Parliament in June last year, we were probably a quarter of the way through working through the Gupta leaks. Since then, a number of reports have come out. If you think about what nobody even looked at Transnet a year ago, today we know that Transnet was probably the biggest area of state corruption because, and there's some very specific examples I can mention. For example, the 1064 locomotive deal. It was supposed to be 38 billion rand, including bribes and corruption, bribes of 5 billion rand. It went up to 54 billion. And that's purely because they manipulated the process. Somebody wanted to make money out of it. They split the contract. They established a factory in Durban, which has never been used. Even 4 years down the line, they're still mothballed over there. So that's one example. The second example is Transnet pensioners are suffering today because of corruption internally. People inside Transnet have, the treasury of Transnet have the capacity and the ability to manage the funds. They brought in outsiders, of which the Guptas, this is just another extension of the Guptas. They abused that fund where millions went sideways as opposed to being invested. So those are just two quick examples that I want to mention, and that need to be put on the table going forward.
Well, Ben Theron, COO of OUTA, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your insight. We'll be learning more about the state capture inquiry in the weeks ahead, and as we mentioned earlier, looking more closely at whistleblowing.
Engage in active citizenry. Join us weekly on Inside OUTA.
Well, we've come to the end of today's show. A big thank you to Gabriella Razzano from the Open Democracy Advice Center for explaining what the rights of whistleblowers are and how her organization supports them. Remember that OUTA works closely with whistleblowers. The most effective and secure way for prospective whistleblowers to contact us is via our online website, online whistleblower reporting platform, and you can find that on the OUTA website. That's www.outa.org.za. Just navigate towards the whistleblowing tab on the drop-down menu, which you can access and post all your information there anonymously. So we'll catch you again next time, same place, next week.
Thanks for listening to Inside OUTA. Tune in next week when we delve deeper into undoing tax abuse.
Live from 27 boxes in the heart of Melville, this is brandlive.co.za.